Ramana?
Yes.
Ah, all right.
Got me now?
Yeah.
Hello, Ramana.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today. It's good to have you.
Good to be with you.
Well, did you have anything you wanted to get into right away? If not, I had a few things I want to ask you, Ramana.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Ramana, I know that you're a fantastic instructor, and we're right on the same page with you with the teachings, but I also know that you're an awakened person, and there are not all that many awakened people walking around, so I thought it would be more interesting for me today to kind of tap into what that really kind of feels like in your moment-to-moment experience. And I don't really have a big game plan here on doing that, but among the things that I thought we might do today was that maybe you might lead a centering exercise. I noticed on the website that's something that AHAM does, and the purpose of that, I think, is to get into a kind of thoughtlessness that is a precursor to peace. And I would love to have you do that because I could probably use my own self-induced centering on a daily basis. Probably don't get enough of that. Would you be interested in doing that today?
All right. If that'll be beneficial, I'd be happy to. Mm-hmm.
All right. We could either start with that, or I've got some questions for you, whatever you prefer.
Well, let's start with it.
All right.
Okay. If there's anyone or whoever is on the call, to just take a moment and give your attention to the fact of your own existence. Your own existence is in the sense of I. The sense of I itself is before anything else is. But even prior to the sense of I is the pure awareness that we all actually are. Now, this pure awareness has no sense of I, but the sense of I will give us the ability to withdraw our attention into the stillness and silence of the pure awareness, the I am that we are. I am is before even the sense of I is. The sense of I rises out of the I am. So just being aware that you are, not I am this or I am that, simply I am. Consciousness is this I am. Pure awareness is this I am. And this I am, or pure consciousness, is before anything else is. And without this pure awareness, nothing else would be. For out of this pure awareness rises the sense of I, and the sense of I is what gives note and gives rise to all other things as this or that. Things do not call attention to themselves. It is we that call attention to things. We say things exist. Things do not say that they exist. So simply see this. And now let go into the simple I am feeling. Feel I am, without there being an I that is feeling it. This I am is stillness. It is silence. It is pure being. This I am is the same I am that is recorded in Scripture when Moses was on Mount Sinai, realizing I am that I am. Moses' realization was that the I am that is pure being, or God, the supreme being, is not different from the I am of the self we all are. See this and know this for yourself. Feel it right now in this moment, just like Moses felt it 5,000 or so years ago. It is not different, even now, as it was in Moses' time. This is the place of peace, freedom, and true joy, the very self that we all are.
Speechless on the radio.
We just had a verboten empty space lasting 10 or 12 seconds.
I'm sorry I missed that.
We were just joking about dead space on the radio. You know, like in mainstream radio, that's a no-no because people might flip through the dial and think there was nothing on there, and then you lose a listener or something like that.
Oh, okay.
We actually do have a silence, like stillness averse culture. Would you gentlemen not agree with that? It's kind of a novel concept in America. We like a lot of noise and action. I mean, I watch what the kids are being given to watch on television because my kids come home, and now the images that are presented to the mind are chopped up into these little microsecond images. Boom, 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 boom. This is what the kids now, if they don't get that, they're not stimulated. So thank you, Ramana, for helping us get back into the zone there.
Okay.
What's the best way to stay?
The best way to stay in this?
Yes.
Very simply is, again, to start with your own sense of I. The sense of I is prior to anything that the I is aware of. Whatever is going on in one's life that might be of a, let's say, perhaps of an upsetting, fearful, worrisome nature, they cannot have this fearful, worrisome, upsetting nature without the sense of I that has the upset, whatever the upset might be. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be upset. It can be a pleasant nature as well, experience as well. Every experience requires first the sense of I that is having the experience. So we can take a hold of our own attention by simply giving notice to the sense of I. Then, holding on to the sense of I with one's attention, withdraw the sense of I inward back to the point from which the sense of I takes rise. There is stillness and silence there prior to the sense of I. So then one can just enter into, or my teacher Bhagavan Ramana used to say, dive into this sense of awareness, this stillness and silence of pure being and just rest there, remain there. In fact, what's very beneficial, if one can do so, is to remain in it for the rest of one's life. That's where I live now. Okay?
Yep. I've got some questions for you, Ramana, but before I get to kind of the ego-driven, well, I don't know if they're ego-driven questions, they're questions that come up out of my persona, but I think that very first time that someone experiences this awakening to this ever-present, I call it witnessing awareness, that the very first time that happens, you become aware there's something so much greater than yourself, and this incredible joy of being able to release all of this tension that you have around being who you are as a small identified person. What was it like for you the first time that you had that awakening experience? I mean, did it bring you to tears, or was it kind of, how did that experience go down for you?
Well, now, the very first time that I had it, I was approximately 5 years old. And I had undergone a very serious accident, a scalding, a pot of boiling water inadvertently dropped or fell, was knocked into my lap. I had very serious burns. And I lived in a very small city, a very small town actually, in East Texas called Grant Saline. And that's where my parents were living. This is during the Depression years. And there was no hospital, and there was only an itinerant doctor, and he was away from his office. Boys had gone on their bicycles rapidly into town and found a note on his door that he was out making house calls, so the doctor was not available. They returned home and to where we lived, and it was in kind of out in a rural area, not too far from town, about 5 miles, because it was a very small town. And I was screaming, and my mother was beside herself, as was my father, who happened to be there too, because my father was working nights at that time in the salt mines in Grand Saline. And one of the neighbors, suggested that there was a hermit living back in the woods, further back into the woods than where we lived, right on the edge of the woods. And he was kind of held in suspicion in the town. Very many people did not know how to take him, so to speak. And he was a loner, a hermit. And they said that the rumor was that he had powers and ability to take the heat out of fire. My mother used to tell the story after this happened. And my mother, they said, "Would you like us to go and get him? Maybe he could do something." And my mother said, "Yes, anything." So they went back into the woods. We call him Uncle Billy. And they went back and brought Uncle Billy to my bedside. And he, without ever speaking a word, he just motioned everyone out. We lived in a tent back in those days. We were squatters with the permission to place our tent on this property by the owner. And we were very poor. And he just motioned everyone out of the tent, sat down on a box beside the cot on which I was lying. I was not very still, but he placed his right hand on my chest, and his left hand about an inch above the burn on my left leg, and began to move his hand up and down, back and forth, not touching me, but above above the burn. My leg was a solid blister, and whispered, I don't know what, I can't remember, in my ear, and was murmuring perhaps a prayer or a mantra, I'm not sure. And then just instantly, I was out of the body. I was fully aware, but I was free of the body. And in that instant, I was aware of my oneness with everything in the room, with him, with everything. I was fully aware of it. I cannot really put it into words other than there were no boundaries between me, the awareness actually, me and everything around me. And I lived in that state for a few years after that. I lost it, I guess 2 or 3, maybe 4 years, I'm not sure exactly, after that. But I was able to stay in this awareness much of the time. Of course, I was a child. I couldn't describe it to anyone. I was not able to explain it to anyone. A time or two, I would go back into the woods and see Uncle Billy, but he didn't have anything to say. He'd just look at me and smile. I would look at him and smile, and it was like we both understood what was going on without any words being spoken. Now, each time I would go to the doctor after that, we did see the doctor sometime after that, and then I was bandaged and all that, and when I would go, the only way that they were able to treat me in those days was just bandages. When I would go back to see the doctor about every other day for a long time, when he would take the bandages off, they would be stuck to my leg, and then I would know that I was back in the body. But I was able to otherwise stay in this awareness, remain as the awareness prior to the body. And as the healing happened eventually, I used to lie out on the ground. It was a place I had a sort of a favorite spot, that I would lie out between 2 big trees that had an incline, and I'd lie on that incline, a gradual incline, and just look up at the sky and at the trees and at the birds and the squirrels, and I would feel my oneness with all of nature. No separateness, no difference. Peace and a tranquility that could not even be described or explained. No different than what it says in the Bible about the peace that passes all understanding. And that's where I live now.
Wow. I didn't expect to get such a wonderful story. That's fantastic.
Beautiful, yeah.
I hope that gives listeners a sense of it. Certainly, I certainly get it. That's fantastic. You were given, well, let me ask you another question. Okay, Arunachala is the sacred mountain in Tiruvannamalai, and it's considered one of the most sacred places in India. And there's an ancient temple there in the town, and pilgrims circumambulate it once a month. And I visited there once with the wizard, and it was so easy to experience the sacred in that place. It was just palpably sacred. And my question for both of you is, what is it that makes certain places and things seemingly more sacred or so sacred, more sacred it seems than others? When we know that everything is sacred, even the ordinary is sacred, why is it that we are able to experience the sacred in certain places and things so readily and not in others? What is it about those places? And then finally, given that, why should we pay homage to a specific place? place, a specific sacred place. Is it useful to us to do that, or is it more useful to see the sacred in everything all the time? I'll open that up to my two resident visitors here.
You want me to take a stab at it?
All right, go ahead.
The driving volition behind perception of divinity is faith. So when so many people for so many thousands of years bring their faith to a particular place, it quickens the Shakti, or the form, to break open to peace. It's like the form is the mother, and you go there, and the form itself puts into the heart of the Father. And the mountain represents Shiva, that formless aspect that Ramana was enticing us to join in. And it's a symbol that has it's solid, it's immovable. It's got all the metaphors about it. It embraces the whole vision and transcends the concept into a real icon for Shiva, the formless and the silent. When Jesus was walking around and the lady tugged on his robe and felt healed, and she was laying praise on Jesus for the healing, Jesus says that it's not I, but there on the face is the healing power. So I notice it too. When I'm there, the ease in which to it's like being in a lock, like at the Panama Canal, and you're in the upper man-made lake, and it's a little restrictive, and you get into even a little more restrictive thing called the lock, and the doors close on the lock, and the water lets out, and then the lock's open, and you're seamless with the sea. And that's kind of how it feels at Arunachala.
All right.
For me.
Yes, I just returned a month or so ago. Every year our group, or someone from our association, go to Tiruvannamalai, the city, the township. Actually, Tiruvannamalai is Tamil, and it's the Tamil word for the Sanskrit Arunachala. They mean the same thing, basically. And we also have a center there. We've had it about 8 or 9 years. And I'm very happy to say the consciousness, the presence is very pronounced and felt in our center there, in our sanctuary. People comment on it when they come and visit us, where we give programs and where I receive people, and we meditate together in satsang and conscious company. And the hill has a very special place in my heart. In fact, had conferred on me the name. The A in Ramana also stands for Arunachala. It used to be AHAM, but Ganeshan gave me the name Arunachala. About 6 or 8 years ago. And so I've just accepted it. I don't actually use it, but I do. People call me that occasionally. But it's a meditation in itself. It's like a mantra. When you give attention to Arunachala, as we're doing right now, just giving our attention to it by thinking it, considering it, that in itself will quicken to those who consider it as a holy place, which it is. Bhagavan Ramana called it the center of the universe, the holiest place on earth, the holiest place in the universe, according to Bhagavan Ramana. It is the stillness and silence, and it represents Shiva, as John just said, or what name should I use? The wizard? Excuse me.
One of my gurus told me when I asked for a name, he said, "Love is more gracious than a name. It doesn't need one."
Yes. Yes.
So I've been called all kinds of things.
Yes, I'm the same. I can understand that.
Probably classical more than anything.
But the presence that Arunachala is, when one is a devotee of God and recognizes that Arunachala represents the manifestation, the physical manifestation of Lord Shiva, of the triune aspect of God, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in the Hindu system, that if one recognizes Arunachala and just approaches the hill, goes up on the hill, walks up on the hill, the mind stops. Thoughts cease. And one can experience. I'm sorry?
It does.
Yes, it does. Thoughts literally cease. And one can abide in the thoughtless, pure awareness of the self, of I am, just by nothing more than considering Arunachala or approaching Arunachala with an attitude of devotion. You see, it will definitely do that. Mm-hmm. So we urge anyone who is interested, to visit Arunachala and the ashram of Bhagavan Ramana or our ashram.
Tell us a little about your place in Ashboro.
Well, our place here in Ashboro has, people say, the same quality. I feel it. I don't even care to leave here anymore. I don't leave our campus, our property, unless I actually have to, because of the stillness and silence here. I was just sharing with a friend this morning that you can come here. Now, we're on the edge of the Uwharrie National Forest. There's not much forest left. It's kind of been gleaned for its timber. But there is an area that's right across the little river from us that is still forest lands, but it's pretty wooded around us, and generally speaking. And when a person can go into the woods and they say, well, I like to go to the forest, to the woods, because of nature, it feels that way. And that's true. But if someone comes here and visits our place And we urge them to go down to the lake, go down in the back to the river and so forth. And just while walking around our property, go to the edge and then walk off of our property into the woods. Go on, just go out 10 or 15 steps, 30 or 40 feet or so away, and sit down on a rock and meditate. You will find that there's a difference. Many people have told me this. There's a difference in walking off of our property and being on our property. The thing that Tripp was talking about, or you were talking about, I guess, John, that when you dedicate, when you give your attention to, when you have a quality of devotion, respect for a location, it generates energy. It generates the cells of consciousness, if you will, and produces a quality that literally is transformative in nature if one does that. Like, for example, if someone were to go into a slaughterhouse where animals are slaughtered, where cattle is slaughtered, there's a quality of consciousness there that is totally different than going into a temple. And you can make that distinction. Anybody can. The area that you're in, the environment that you're in, the atmosphere that you are in, or that you hang out in, it speaks of one's own quality of consciousness, that which we're drawn to, so to speak. Some people, there's a story about the two men had a day off, and one went to a brothel and another went to church. And the one who went to church wished he'd gone to the brothel. The one who went to the brothel wished he'd gone to church. It's the quality, you see, the quality of consciousness that you hang out in. You take on that nature. And here at our center in Asheboro, we're just south of Asheboro, about 30 minutes south of Asheboro. And it's peaceful, very transformative. And our Arunachala room is a meditation room, and our All Saints Sanctuary are two locations where people love to come and sit in the silence and the stillness that is here. It's very transformative. And Ganeshan, our mutual friend, Ganeshan, he calls this his home away from home. He'll be here for about 3 months, beginning in May. And he loves to come here. He's been coming here now for several years, staying, I guess the longest that he stayed here is up to 6 months that he has stayed and visited with us here. And Ganeshan really does not like to hang out in any place other than a place that is similar to what it's like close to Arunachala, he being a grand nephew of Sri Bhagavan Ramana.
What I find fascinating are these sort of shades of gray levels of consciousness that exist that I personally had no understanding of. I experienced them at Arunachala in the company of conscious others walking around the mountain. It was an unbelievable experience. It was off the charts with a kind of peace. One of the things I wanted to ask you two about, which I thought you might have in common, and it's just a little practical thing, but I know you've had some health challenges, Ramana, and the wizard has an unbelievable array.
Bucketable.
Oh my God! He's got more going on. Oh my gosh, kidneys, livers, backs. I mean, he's got a tabletop full of stuff that he does it's just unbelievable. But my question for the two of you, and you can answer this any way you want, is that I know that the wizard doesn't have a normal kind of day where he's awake all day and then he goes to bed like I do and gets refreshed by sleeping. He actually has a kind of transcendental meditation that he does often all night long that for the wizard is just as restful or more restful than sleep. And I wanted to know, maybe the two of you could comment on that, because a lot of people, including myself, as we begin to age, sleeping isn't necessarily as restful as it used to be, and perhaps there's another way for people to be refreshed. Do you have anything you want to offer on that?
For myself, when I lay down, I get dreamy. It's like stuff rolls up to my head, and if I'm vertical and go into the dreamless sleep state, but yet one is still aware through that, it's just as good, if not better, than horizontal sleep. It's extremely peaceful, and the time just zip and nice.
How about you, Ramana?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Since returning from India this time, I have not slept in my bed. I have a very comfortable and large reclining chair, and I just more or less have. I just like my recliner. It's comfortable, and for whatever I don't know particular reason for it. I really don't sleep much anymore. I do and I don't. It's I sleep when I feel like it. My schedule now is much different than it used to be. Now, back in the early days of AHAM, when Elizabeth and I worked in putting together AHAM and serving people who came here, and she did most of that kind of work, but my work was just the consciousness aspect of it. And I used to work on the computer about 8 hours a day, and writing the manuals and the training material and so forth for our conscious curriculum that we offer here, and how to live, how to awaken into the pure awareness of being, and then from a functional point of view, how to live in the world, but not of the world. And
Is this where your buddy system cuts in?
Well, yes, our buddy system has to do with our programs. Our entry-level program is what we call ISIT, which is it's an acronym for Intensive Self-Inquiry Training. We used to do it on the weekend, but it can be done. It becomes only just intellectual then. To bring it more into an existential perspective is we offer it now on an 8-day, full week seminar. And then after the person takes the classroom instruction, which is retreat and classroom work and, time free to contemplate what the teaching itself is about. And then there is an 8-week home study program following that. With that, we have advanced graduates who we assign as a guide to each participant, who has a person has a buddy to be with them, to guide them, assist them in the using of the process and the abiding in the pure awareness of being, to make sure a person is able and capable of abiding in the teaching and in the awareness itself. That's what our buddy system is about. Then we've also got an extended beyond that is what we call our sponsorship program. Now that one I borrowed, if you will, from the 12-step program. Alcoholics and Narcotics, etc., Anonymous. And it's just the aspect of it having to do with the buddy aspect of it, the sponsorship aspect of it. It came to me a number of years ago that the real addiction is addiction to the body-mind, or to the mind and to thinking, to thought. If one did not have addiction to the body-mind and to thought, they could easily be free of addictions from a chemical point of view. So the first addiction is body-mind addiction. It is the meditation of a separate self-identity. When one awakens, one realizes that, in fact, we're not actually human beings. We are divine beings, no different than the Master Jesus or Buddha or Krishna. And we are living momentarily, temporarily, as human beings, the highest expression of nature, of the animal world of nature. The highest one being an animal is being an animal is being a human, the human animal, so to speak. And when we awaken to the true nature of being, we recognize that we're divine, that we are God dwelling as humans. God dwells in us as us, and actually is us. We're just playing the role of the name and form that we're identified with at any given time. And when we awaken to the self that we really are, we can recognize that this character role that we are identified with is really the cause of our suffering, because we're identified with the body and the mind, incorrectly taking them to be who and what we are. But in truth, we're spiritual beings, Christ, if you will, Buddha, if you will. That's who and what we actually are. So the process is to awaken to who and what we are and abide in this awakened awareness of the self, the very self, that in truth is what we are. Maybe I got too far off for you there. I'm sorry.
Beautifully said. That just flowed right in.
That was excellent. Well, I've got one more question here. This is my one hardball question. Okay, it's not really a hardball question, but I want you to maybe look into the potentially deeper aspect of my question, maybe beyond sort of the obvious surface answer, which I think I've already got, and it's this. For those who have practiced self-inquiry, and the wizard here says that everyone that realizes the truth of themselves must practice self-inquiry.
Well, to get to know yourself, your attention has to be on yourself. Otherwise,
Exactly. So, those who are awakened to this truth that you so eloquently just spoke must practice self-inquiry, and AHAM is rightfully attentive to self-inquiry in the process and guiding people through that process. For someone that has gone through that process, either through AHAM or just naturally on their own or what have you, and has arrived at a state of awareness and wakefulness, perhaps not permanently abiding in their true beingness, but significantly so, is there a time, Ramana, when that process of self-inquiry, and I don't want to use this word, I'll use the word should with quotes around it, but should or could be let go into a sort of deeper faith where one no longer allows oneself to sort of revisit this once youthful process of a kind of verbalized self-inquiry or what have you, to a place where you're just going to put all that down and just say, you know what, I'm done, I'm finished, I've let it go. How do you feel about that idea of stopping yourself at some point from engaging in sort of that practice of self-inquiry and simply acknowledging to yourself that you're finished, you're done, you know? don't even go there. Stop the thought.
Well, our teaching at AHAM brings one to that place. If they stay with the inquiry, that's the whole purpose of inquiry. That's the intention, is to awaken to the true nature of the being that we actually are. And the whole process, the real process is to, every time a thought arises, which comes out from the conditioned mind, it's the conditioning of the mind that keeps one identified with the body and with the world of time and space. And when one withdraws attention into the pure awareness, eventually staying in the pure awareness, constantly, consistently returning attention into the pure awareness and remaining in the pure awareness and functioning from the pure awareness of the self, the conditioned patterns of the mind eventually become neutralized. And as they become neutralized, one begins to recognize for themselves that all the mind really is, as Bhagavan Ramana used to say, it's a bundle of thoughts, the first and primary thought being the I thought. But all other thoughts together comprise the I, the sense of I, as a seeming individual, as a separate entity living in time and space, which is not what we are. We are the pure awareness. We are spirit, consciousness. And when we withdraw our attention into it and remain in it, then the mind ultimately will dissolve, leaving only the pure being of the self without there being a sense of I at all. The pure awareness has no sense of I, and the body has no sense of I. It's the ego that is the sense of I, so we must transcend the ego and awaken to and remain in the pure awareness of being, the true nature of the very self. Okay?
James, he had a story one time. He says a pilgrim is using a walking stick to go up the mountain, and the pilgrim goes up the mountain and reaches its summit, comes back down, and James, he says, he doesn't take his stick and just throw it on the ground to say he doesn't need it anymore. He rests the stick on a tree where another pilgrim may see it and use it just as he used it, and to keep it intact.
Yes.
Well,
beautiful.
This has been another delightful hour of conscious company. For those out there listening that don't have wise elders that they have gathered around them, I hope you've enjoyed this hour, and I would urge you to make that something that's a consistent presence in your life, because there's nothing more delicious than conscious company, and I think nothing more important in confirming that truth. And so, Ramana, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I've loved your stories today. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you soon.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.